Hi everyone, this is going to be a quick presentation on peer reviewing as we enter the last final assignments for the semester. And welcome to week 10. We only have 5 left. So today we're going to go over a quick reflection on peer reviewing. We're going to explain the criteria, go over some strategies, look over a sample peer review, and at the very end, we're going to have an assessment to gauge your understanding. First things first is our objective. So what is the goal? Here, the goal of this lesson is to help students understand how to give more comprehensive and constructive feedback to peers while peer reviewing. So I'll be asking you all to pause this video and take some time to reflect to these questions. Before this class, have you ever engaged in peer reviewing? Concerning the last workshop, were you satisfied with the quality of feedback you received? Why or why not? What did you appreciate about the feedback you received? What was missing? And how do you think you can improve in your next peer review? Now we can begin to think about our criteria. What are the expectations and guidelines? Now, in terms of criteria, we are looking at 2 major things. One is the length, and the second would be the content. The length, we ask for at least 2 meaningful paragraphs of feedback. Now, what is meaningful feedback? It's looking at how you can best articulate something. It is being specific. So an example of this looks like the quote here, which is, "I think you should take this out because," it's offering a suggestion, but that is specific. We are also looking at the content. We would like you to identify one content area for improvement and one area you consider a strength in every peer review that you conduct. We will now be looking at strategies or things to keep in mind while conducting your peer review. When implementing some strategies, there are some important questions that you should ask yourself, such as, is what I'm writing helpful? Am I being clear in my feedback? What are the strengths or limitations about this piece of work? Is it easy to follow? Is the writing or the arguments clear? And do I have any questions about the work that weren't answered? Now, this is not an exhaustive list, but these are some general questions to prompt your feedback. We will now be analyzing a student sample. For this sample, I will be using my own annotated bibliography feedback that I received when I did a peer review. For my own semester-long project, I centered it on increasing invisible disability awareness at the University of Maryland. This is my annotated bibliography from when I took this course as an example. Some feedback that I received primarily is that I could have included a comprehensive summary of my project and goals, when adding a summarized audience analysis would be helpful. Here, the feedback I received was on content. I was missing something. In this case, I was missing an abbreviated audience analysis. Including an audience analysis would have been very helpful in this case because right off the bat, the peer reviewing student would have known who my target audience was. So here's another example of some feedback I received. This particular annotation is about an article about a neurodivergent student who is advocating for alternative grading since they face invisible disabilities. The feedback I received was that it's great that you are supporting your claim with a credible source like this. Also, the live example of the student struggling with ADHD is helpful. I think it would also be helpful to add whether it is biased or not. In this case, the student is asking me to be more specific, to add a little bit more content to the citation. Here is an example of the final write-up that is expected of students conducting a peer review. It should be roughly 2 paragraphs again and include some strengths and limitations. Here, the student included the strengths and limitations of my annotated bibliography draft. The strengths were formatting. I used proper citations and credible sources. The student also included the limitations, which were being clear in which annotation supported each of my claims, and including some background on the project for peer-reviewing students who weren't familiar with it. So it's really important here that for every suggestion you give, that you say why it will be helpful in the student's work. and this helps immensely in the revision process. Here I have also included an excerpt from my revision memo for the annotated bibliography assignment. I ended up implementing more context into my annotation since my classmate from my peer review recommended this. So as you conduct more feedback, you become more adept at understanding what to implement to create a stronger final copy. Feel free to look this over to get a better understanding of what kind of feedback to implement as you receive it from peers. And that's all. I really hope that this was helpful for you. And please don't forget to fill out the Google Form survey to gauge your understanding. Thank you all so much for watching. I have included my email here in the last slide if you have any further questions.